Hoppy Easter! Let's get started. Before anything, I'm going to be using a thin liner to map out what's going to end up being my chocolate center because apparently I'm super sweet on the inside. Put it on my arm with a tattoo because oddly enough the tattoo was almost the perfect shape that I already had in mind. If you happen to not have the size and shape of a tattoo on your shoulder, you can definitely freehand this. Then I'm going to get primed, prim, and proper all over my face and chest. For this look in particular, I was attempting to try my best to match to this wig, so it was all cohesive. I'm priming my eyes and then adding in my transition shade into the crease. Following that up with one of these shadows that best matches the wig in my opinion, and I'm putting that about halfway onto my lid and out. I'm using a cotton round folded in half so I can have a bit more of a straighter line coming out. And then coming in with a red on a smaller brush and shaping that up, while simultaneously adding depth to the look. Blending everything further together using a brush that I used for the middle color. And then with my finger, I'm adding more of an icy tone to my inner corner. I'm taking the original color I used and pulling that beneath my waterline. Further carrying that up and out slowly until it's basically a box around my eye. I'm not messing with my eyebrows because honestly I'm really proud of them today and I did not want to take them off for this. I'm using a white concealer. Face paint can also definitely work for this as well, and under my eye I'm going to be making almost kind of a rendition of the Nike Just Do It symbol. That's probably the best way I can put it. And I'm blending that out to make sure that there's not really a line of demarcation between just below my lash line and this. It's more along the lines of a line of demarcation just below this where I'm going to be placing more shadow. Taking the middle shadow once again, it's time for a nose job. Kind of. I'm adding a little bit of it to the end, so it kind of almost just looks like you're a little bit chilly, and then down the sides. Think of this like a very harsh contour, but make it pink. To further the pink, but give it some variance, I'm using the Likely Makeup Fairy Blush, the pink one, obviously, and putting that all around. Up above my eyes, carrying it down around my temples, and making it almost basically, again, a contour shade. And then again, almost basically a blush itself. Shocker, using a blush as a blush. Taking white body paint, and this time, yes, you can also use a white concealer. I'm dabbing myself an unusual upper lip, and using a damp beauty sponge to diffuse it. I'm definitely needing to go back and forth between using the brush and using the damp sponge, more or less just to create some opacity but also still have it so it blends in better to my skin. Adding more of the blush to ensure maximum blendability, or whatever. I'm going to be using a makeup wipe to crisp up the lines of my contour, and if I'm being honest, I just really suck at contour, so this helps. But definitely don't do this if you wear any kind of actual foundation or concealer, because it'll take that off too. You've been told. I'm adding a slight highlight onto my nose. Ooh, that kind of almost rhymed. This is actually just a sparkly eyeshadow from Jeffree Star's Jawbreaker palette. It's just a sparkly not like an actual glitter, but like a shimmery pink tone. And I'm adding that onto the upper part of my cheeks as well, and then adding little whiskers to my upper area. That was a weird little sentence. My actual human upper lip and lower lip are going to be two different colors, the upper being a very dark pink and the bottom one being a white, which I know isn't technically a color, but whatever. Again, as for the philtrum, aka the line connecting the nose with the upper lip on a rabbit, and yes, it's going to be another version of an unrealistic shade of pink. And yes, I had to Google that word as well. It's like agate. Nobody actually really knows what it's called at all. I did blend the area out a little bit and then come in with a very, very skinny brush with a pure red on it and add that to the very middle. Basically diffused and then add the same color, only a little bit darker into the middle, so it's diffused but also very concentrated. I'm also reshaping my lips a little bit so they're a little bit more pointed towards the upper portion. Then adding some mascara. And then onto the chest piece, finally. This is indeed going to be the easiest portion. I just made a swirled out blob of white with a contour brush and then flicked out the ends to give a hair-like strokes to it. I had actually planned out more for this, but there was already a lot of features to this look and I didn't want to take anything away from the soon-to-be chocolate, which I'll be making strides towards now. With some liquid latex, which I'm going to be using to line the area with a disposable sponge. I'm basically putting a moat around it and then some tinfoil. You could definitely go all out with this. Eat some Cadbury, not sponsored, or whatever Easter chocolate you have and use that foil. I had this on hand and everybody's hoarding everything nowadays, so this is what you got. I do take a very thin piece and crumple it up a bit and then place it. This is a safe space here. We can all admit that by the time we're done with our chocolate, there's almost no foil to be seen just because it's completely crumpled and put somewhere random that nobody really knows and nobody can judge you for. Destroy all the evidence. This was probably the most time-consuming aspect because each layer I put of liquid latex, I had to wait for that to dry before I added more, but it definitely did keep it in place so long as I needed it to be. If I had to take a guess, I'd probably say this is about 10 to 15 layers of liquid latex, which was suitable for me. I then pulled up, or rather crumpled up the edges and then added in my paint. Now this paint is accurately called chocolate, which is exactly what we needed. I'm just going to be literally painting this in. Usually I would put down a little bit of brown before I put in any color because the liquid latex has a little bit of a different tone to it, but considering this is brown, I would just be putting brown on top of brown and that's kind of useless, so... Now time for some editing magic that I'd only be able to do otherwise in a witchy tutorial. And then the last piece of this costume, and that's going to be the headband, which I also did make myself. This was easy enough to make, but again, it was very time consuming. First of all, I started off with a metal headband. It doesn't really matter what's around the headband so long as it is metal, because it's going to have to keep metal up, which is the metal wire right here. I did make these custom to how big I wanted them to be, so I did put it up with a mirror to show kind of on my head how big they should be because I do have a little bit of a smaller head, and then I mapped it out on a piece of paper with a pen so I had kind of like a rough estimate of where I wanted them. I did shape the wires to go to approximately where they are, although wire this thick is very stable but it's extremely hard to shape, so this was again just an approximation at this point, and cut them down with some wire cutters and started my building. For the prop itself on these, you definitely can make your own eggs out of maybe air dry clay or something that's very, very light in consistency. I use these foam eggs from the dollar store, which actually had a little hanger in them, but it was easy to take out of most of them. I pushed the metal wire through these to secure them. You definitely can map out beforehand, which is exactly what I did, because I didn't want two colors being too close together. Like I didn't want a green being super close to a green, so I wanted to make sure that I had a variation of color on each of them. You definitely can secure these with some glue, although I thought it was kind of cool that they moved about a little bit for picture purposes and video purposes. It is a little bit cooler to be able to adjust them as I please for each of the videos, and again I wanted to make sure that these could easily wrap around the headband afterwards, so I wanted to know how many I could actually add on before it gets too close to where it's going to wrap around essentially. And I did that to both of them, obviously making it so the color alternates well, not only on each of them, but in comparison to each other. So there's not a pink in the exact same place as there's a pink on the other one. I know it's a little bit OCD and a little bit much, but I just preferred mine in that way. You guys can obviously do yours whichever way you please. As for the headband, as you can see, or as you've been able to see, this is a animal headband. It has its own little animal ears, which I want to take off, so I just use wire cutters on that, which actually help to keep the current color intact, luckily, which is nice because I put it over a pink wig. And then this I didn't show fully on camera because honestly it was a process. This is probably the longest process that took because I had to make it so it wouldn't get stuck to my hair, like my actual hair when I put it in my hair, or the wig when I put it in my wig. And also I wanted to make sure it didn't go through the wig and actually hurt me because these are very, very strong wires. So it was a little bit of push and pull, a lot of manipulating the wires in certain ways, pulling it with the wire cutters and with my hands. Furthermore, I did adjust them once I got them properly on here, and again, that is why I wanted to do these without glue, because the more you put it without glue, the easier it is to adjust them. But in the end, I think it turned out pretty great. That's the finished product. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and Hoppy Easter!